counter.
I've got another feeling.
It feels very
Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, and Gonzalo.
Hey.
Hey. Yes, how you guys getting on?
Oh, happy to be back.
The viewers, or the listeners, I should say, will be very lucky since they'll be getting 2 episodes out very quick
Yes,
succession.
I know, oh my god.
Yes.
I know.
It's totally not.
There's Gonzalo to blame there.
Yeah, no, definitely not my fault at all. Has nothing to do with the fact that I did not edit it in time.
It's the thing. I get the email whenever my audio has been downloaded, and I just saw it popped up like 2 hours ago, and I was like,
I got a notification. I was like, oh, there.
Oh yeah, no,
I don't forget another episode tomorrow. So how good. But yes, on today's episode, as planned, we will be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, James Gunn's conclusion to his Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and as usual with all these big releases we do, we'll be doing a full spoiler-free and spoiler-filled section of this episode, and I will leave time codes below so you can choose which portion you want to listen to. But of course, we'll begin with the spoiler-free section. So, like I just said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was written and directed by James Gunn and stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Pom Clementif, Karen Gillan, Shkudia Woody, and Will Poulter. What a cast this film has.
Honestly.
But yes, so after the events of Avengers Endgame, the Guardians have set up base on Nowhere, where Peter Quill is still reeling over the loss of Gamora. However, Star-Lord and the rest of the team will have to quickly come together when the villainous High Evolutionary sends the godly Adam Warlock to retrieve his greatest creation, Rocket Raccoon. And that's all I will say in terms of plot here, because I don't want to get into all the gritty details.
Okay,
but,
let's get into the most important part of the non-spoiler review, guys. So, when Volume 2 came out, we assumed that it was like a play on words because of the cassette thing. There's no third side to a cassette. What do we think about this being called Volume 3?
I think that's just disgraceful.
Right?
I think
it should have been
cool.
track.
Should have been back, yeah.
They should have called it like
cool,
Guardians of the Galaxy Track 2.
Track
and then
2.
you could have had as many tracks as you want.
Yeah. See, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Marvel, just hire me. I can do the job.
But in all seriousness,
yes.
So I watched this movie on Thursday when it came out. I was lucky enough to find an English version of it on the day it came out, and I haven't enjoyed myself in a Marvel movie like this in a very, very long time.
When do you think the last time that was? What do you think this is the longest gap between a Marvel film you've really liked? What was the last one?
Might have been Endgame,
2018.
Maybe. But like
Endgame,
I didn't even
2019.
I didn't enjoy Endgame even as much as I enjoyed this one. I like this one a lot better than the Infinity Saga movies.
Right.
Maybe Black Panther.
I'm a bit like for me. I would say the last time I genuinely enjoyed an MCU film was probably Infinity War. I see Endgame as a bit of like a fan servicey end to everything, which I don't think is a bad film, but like I don't think I enjoy Endgame on its own as much as I enjoy Infinity War on its own.
Yeah, Infinity War feels like a much, I don't know, just a better packed in together film, like a better directed film. It has just like a good pace to it. It just feels quite solid and quite tight.
Exactly.
This is my feeling. But anyway, back to Guardians 3. What are your overall thoughts there, Gonzalo, on this film, briefly?
Okay, so I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought it was a fantastic send-off for the cast. The quality of this movie really makes me annoyed that the Guardians of the Galaxy are even part of the MCU.
I mean, they're kind of not, though. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
You can watch all 3 of these. Well, actually, no, you can't because there is an Avengers film slotted in there.
You need to watch the Infinity Saga to get this movie, and that annoys me because I can see myself in like 10, 20 years rewatching these and just going through the Guardians of the Galaxy films and ignoring everything else to do with the MCU, but having that gap in continuity with Infinity Wars really bugs me and really annoys me that these are even part of the MCU at all. Honestly, I'm kind of mad about that.
Also, kind of tell that it annoyed James Gunn as a writer, I think.
Oh yeah,
I think you can tell.
So an interesting thing, and a thing that annoyed me a lot about Infinity War, and I think Infinity War is a very good movie, like Kyle said.
Spoilers for a 5-year-old film, by the way.
I think it's a very strong movie, but in Infinity War, they handle Quill and Gamora completely, terribly, awfully wrong. And I absolutely hated what they did with them. I hated that they kissed. I hated how their relationship was depicted. I hated how they fucking fridged Gamora. I hated everything about what they did to my Guardians in Infinity War. And this film feels like James Gunn got given a shitty plate, and now he's trying to rearrange it to make it look good. And he somehow fucking manages to. So yeah, without spoiling anything, that's my take on that.
Very good. Okay, well, Kyle, to you.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with what you guys say. I really think this was one of probably the funnest MCU films I've had in a while. Once again, I'm not entirely sure if that's me just having experienced previous MCU films. I go into this. I have to say, something that I loved so much was the use of practical sets and just physical spaces. Like, that was just made. I was sitting there feeling honest. No, but just like the actual spaceship, some sets, like they were in places. It wasn't just them standing in front of a green screen.
Do you know, the spaceship set was so, like, the set of their spaceship was so nice looking. My dad stopped twice through the movie to turn to me and say, "Oh my god, that's spaceship set?" Like, that's how fucking good it was. Like, he genuinely stopped in the middle of the movie to tell me, "That set looks so cool."
I have to give credit to James Gunn there, that he will put effort into making these films.
Yes.
I think this will kind of tie into what we'll talk about in spoilers. I personally think, now I don't know if he actually did this Gonfalo, because obviously when I ask you to do things, it's a 50-50.
No, I haven't had time to do it. No, I was
exactly. He's a liar. He's a cheat. So I'm the only one that actually watched the Christmas special when this came out.
In my defense, I've only had 5 months. You don't really give me enough time.
I don't. I should really put it more in advance. By the way, there's going to be another Batman film going in the future. You should probably catch up on that. But
okay, go on.
I have some slight noises which we'll talk about later, because I think that, like we were saying with the whole Avengers issue, that you can't really enjoy these as a trilogy. I think that there's actually some kind of parts to this story that are introduced in this Christmas special that, unless you haven't seen the Christmas special, because also they buy nowhere in this Christmas special. Like, that's where they set up the idea that this is going to be their base.
Off screen. I didn't mind that at all. I was like, that's cool.
That's not the only thing, Lewis. I'm just giving suggestions.
Right, so
he's told me about it when we get into spoilers.
Section, Lewis.
Yeah. God. He's told me about it when we get into spoilers. But
yeah,
a little bit more.
I agree that I think the cast was actually just fantastic. It's so much fun. Karen Gillan is just Nebula as a character that I was a bit like in 2014 or 2013.
So
I love that character now. I think she's so much fun.
Incredible growth. One who
she's really kind of progressed.
A character who actually did through those 2 Avengers films is actually one who was handled well and comes into this one quite good. Yeah.
Actually, yes, I completely agree. I do have to say, as not a big fan of Chris Pratt, he was absolutely amazing in this movie.
Great performance from Chris Pratt. A great leading man performance, I thought.
He was great. He was brilliant, honestly. He did such a good job.
That's so funny you say that, because I genuinely was sitting there kind of going, I'm not hating this guy. I'm like, I'm not a huge Chris Pratt fan. But what do you think, Lewis, overall?
But yeah, like you, I quite like this film, actually. I agree it's the best Marvel film in 4 or 5 years. I think this is also the strangest Marvel film ever made in terms of its style, in terms of some of the bizarre creature and world designs we get here. There is a real... James Gunn really brings his nastiness to this, like the Days of Slither or Super, or even the Suicide Squad, which he did a few years ago. Like, there's a real viciousness as well to a lot of the action, to a lot of the subject matter in this film as well, which we'll get to, and a lot of the weird, horrible hybrid creature designs. There's like some nasty bloodiness to it as well. There's wow, this is quite a vicious film at times, which I was really taken aback by. I was like, Kevin Feige let James Gunn get away with a lot here, I thought, because they kind of owed him one.
Yeah.
So they're like, right, you can kind of, push it here if you want to.
He was given carte blanche in this one, and it's very obvious.
I think the strongest aspect of the film is the character writing and the character dynamics. James Gunn loves these guys. James Gunn loves these characters, and you could definitely feel it. Just the way that he's got them like finely tuned now, where all the dynamics are bouncing off each other. The jokes hit really well. This is definitely the funniest Marvel film in a long time as well.
Yeah.
Like it's not just cringe humor. It's genuinely quite funny.
Holy shit! The fact that like this movie made me laugh without going to like, oh, every character is just suddenly really quippy and look at this situation.
I had a lot of like subtle laughs, which I think are the kind of best kind of
That's the thing. Like it builds up your laughter. It maintains that like kind of like joyful spirit, and it also like goes up and down a lot. It takes you down to some fucking dark places. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
No, but yeah, and with that, it's like to me, it was definitely the most emotionally driven Marvel film as well. It feels like, well, actually, you could say the same for, well, Infinity War is kind of bogged down with like Infinity Stone's plot, but that had a lot of emotion to it as well. But this really was purely emotionally driven, as we'll get to more in spoilers. Like there's very little about, we have got to get this MacGuffin or do this, although there is like things they have to retrieve. It's more about let's fucking go and do this. We don't have time. Let's just go.
It's a very small plot. It's
very
like,
small.
When you look at
small.
it's very small.
Genuinely does not care about expanding the universe in terms of like the Marvel stuff at all. Bar one character, which did bother me, which we'll get to. And and all that sort of emotion, like visceral nature to it, really made me. The second act to me is really where this film was like at its absolute best. It was just funny. It was weird. There was just strange creature designs. There's this whole thing on Counter Earth that it's funny, and then when it gets to the action, it's like, let's go. Like who cares anymore? Let's just do this, and let's just put everything on the line for this. And I was like, let's do it.
Got
And that's why
some
I really
moments of like catharsis that like oh my god, there was this one scene that I'll talk more in spoilers, but like there was this one scene where this character just turns around, it's like, let's go. And like I fucking felt that like this movie really makes those highs hit you hard, because it also brings you down to a lot of lows, and like you said, it's very emotional. Like the plot itself, it's not like, oh, we're having to save the world. No, it's like we're doing this one thing. We're doing this one thing, and in our way to do that one thing, we need to do these other things and get these MacGuffins. But like, it's exclusively for this one aim. It feels a lot like, going back to Infinity War, like Thor's story in that one, where it's like, I want to kill Thanos. In order to do that, I need an axe. I get the axe, now I go kill Thanos. Like, that's what it feels like, It's
and
not like...
It's that whole thing where it's like, it's very anti-Marvel and superheroes in general, where it's, we've got this one thing to do, and we will kill absolutely everyone in our way to do it. We'll be nasty about it, Like, we don't care.
See on that point, Lewis, I just think, just in case people were aware of the situation, because like you said, it's very anti-Marvel, and I do think that maybe some of that is to do with the background of what happened in the
behind the scenes
for this film. So to give a bit of context, when Phase 4 or 5 or whatever phases
doesn't matter. It's a number.
Guardians 3 was actually set to come out in 2022.
Yes.
It was actually it was going to be originally before for Love and Thunder, because if you remember at the end of Endgame, they were all together. It's a nice time. But during some events in 2018 or 2019, tweets from James Gunn's past, like decades ago, resurfaced, and Marvel fired him out of the blue. Right. Now, obviously, because you say that the cast and crew are so connected, there was a lot of the Guardians.
Yeah, they were just refusing to do the film if James Gunn.
Exactly, they were gonna jump out because Dave Bautista has said that if it wasn't for James Gunn, he wouldn't have a career. Exactly, and.
Which, by the way, thank fuck, because the guy is a brilliant actor. Like,
I know, he's had Knives Out, Bond, Blade Runner ever since there. That Shyamalan film as well.
Knock at the Cabin, which he is the best part of that film.
So that was all great, but then what happened was, at the time, DC scooped James Gunn up, and he went off and made The Suicide Squad.
Which is the most underrated comic book film
You know,
And
that's
I love that film.
It's a shame
So
because it is incredible, but sadly didn't perform well. And COVID times, but blah blah blah. So Marvel then quickly went, "Oh no, we want you back."
Yeah.
And then he's kind of gone, "Well, I'm going to do this Suicide Squad for film first." During that process, DC clearly were like, "Hi, we want you full time as our boss." So then he comes back, and what I think, we can talk about this more in spoilers, obviously. But what I think was, it was like a case where he went, "I'll come back, but you have no input." Like to Kevin Feige, because as we know from recent press and interviews and stuff, that Marvel is more producer ran than director ran for these films.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've seen the films.
James Gunn went up to Kevin Feige and said, "You want me to do this last film? I'm doing it my way." And it just proves that he let him do what he wants.
And I'm going to throw in an F-bomb, and I'm going to reference meth, and I'm going to I'm just going to make it grimy. And
guys, for me, this movie doesn't only just prove that James Gunn is a good director. He's a good fucking director. It's a great movie. He's a great script writer. But for me, this movie proves that the MCU problem is 100% what we've been talking about, and it's the fact that the movies are written by committee. The fact that this is a bunch of producers trying to see what's going to be more popular and looking at what's going to build hype for the next movie, rather
stuff. They're not
rather than letting actual directors and writers write and direct the movies. Because I'm just saying, some of the directors we've had in the previous Marvel flops were good directors. Their movies were fucking shit. Sam Raimi was great. For fucking Wakanda Forever, I'm sorry, we saw this done well once. We know he can do it. I don't think Coogler became a worse director all of a sudden. So it really does show that it's very much about that kind of the whole marketing thing of, they all have to be interconnected. This has to set up the next thing. It has to set up the next thing. It has to set up the next thing. They're no longer letting movies just be good. And this movie was just good. It doesn't set shit up. I mean, I guess it's sort of leaves it with these are the new generation kind of thing at the end, and we do get one character set up, I guess. But not really.
I'll jump into it because I'll
calm down there, Gunfala. You're about to say the whole story.
I know.
No.
I will jump into some negatives there, and I want to talk about Adam Warlock because I thought he was absolutely pointless. You could have easily written this character out of the film, and it would not have really changed one bit. I think he adds very little to the picture besides one or two jokes, and I actually think
his jokes were funny. I have to admit that.
The jokes were good. Unlike most Marvel jokes, his jokes are pretty good.
Him and his mum just kind of take away screen time from characters I'd rather be with. The entire rest of the cast, really. And I'm not saying Will Poulter's bad. I like Will Poulter as an actor, and I think he's good in this role. I just think he's completely unnecessary to the full plot and actual emotional core of the story. I do not think he's necessary at all.
Yeah, we don't spend that much time with him, in my opinion.
I know,
so
but
really
I'm saying, I'd rather not spend any time with him.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I have an issues where this is a whole, I would love to have seen some people's original game plans for certain things before events like Avengers came in and everything. So obviously he got teased way back in 2017 at the end of
Guardians
2, right?
Guardians 2,
I was really interested because obviously we knew the Infinity Saga was coming, and he's a huge player in the Infinity War and Saga books. So I was I thought at the time that he was going to be he's going to come out and he's originally the Soul Stone Keeper. And when they were not doing it, I was kind of right, okay, what we gonna do with this guy? Because his main story in the comics is the Infinity War saga, and I was like, okay. And then I played actually that underrated Guardians game, by the way. I don't know if you guys played it,
I enjoyed it.
It's really good as well. And his character, and he's meant to be a kind of very almost. Well, here's my thing: is I think when I kind of read it, sometimes I kind of get him as an almost Vision character where he's just born but he's insanely wise, right? And I don't know if they decided that they didn't want to do that again, and when they made him because there was a line in it by his mother who was you took him out of his cocoon too early, and that's why he's kind of babyish
Yeah.
And
a bit dumber.
That was the one thing that really peeved me off. Like, see, even if he was just an adult and he had the same kind of screen time, I would have let it pass because I would have known that he was too much of a big character that they would have probably bring him back later. But now, kind of with Lewis was saying that with this kind of the way that the character was written, I was a bit like, The only good thing about it is I think they did the casting right, because Will Hort,
he does a really good
funny.
job.
Have you ever seen his School of Comedy sketches from like years and years
ago?
Yeah,
when he was a kid. Yeah, very funny.
God.
He is so entertaining, and I think like I think he was the one good thing about the Adam Warlock character was him betraying it. So I need to know like what they're gonna see if in the future, right? They really kind of like grow his character, and I know that this was just a stage in his life.
Yeah.
I may look back more fondly on his but at the moment I'm with Lewis and I'm like I didn't need you there.
I kind of understand, because honestly, if you take him out of the entire movie, this movie would still work very well. I have a feeling he's like a remnant of the previous script, because James Gunn did have the entirety of Guardians 3 written before he was fired. I have a feeling he might be a remnant of the old script, and he just got attached here. It doesn't bug me, because I really do not care about the original character, because I know very little about Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't, he's not annoying enough for me to hate him. He's used by the plot like kind of like force of nature kind of thing. And I think it works, but I also see your point, Lewis, that you could take him completely out of the movie, replace him with like X-Minion, and it would still be the same movie. I very much agree with that.
Well, actually, let's talk about the high evolutionary then, because we actually have to talk about him. And,
amazing villain, fantastic job. Holy shit, that was a great.
So you liked him? You liked High Evolutionary?
Really liked him. I hated him. I hated him. Like, I liked how much I hated him.
I was like, I supported all his causes.
Yes, everything he does in the movie.
More credit.
Moral-wise, 100%.
I enjoyed the High Evolutionary as what he was, which was just an insane fucking scientist. Like, when I kind of accepted that as his kind of character, where he was just trying to like almost meticulously make a better species, and he was getting so frustrated with it. That I just kind of was like, oh, you're just a mad scientist. Cliche, but I'm enjoying it. It's better, for me personally, it's better than the last two Guardians villains. Because Ronan was a bit too bland for me, and I'm not a huge fan of the ego storyline from the second film. Me personally. Unwanted Opinion.
Liked ego.
But like for me, I actually quite like
it's fine. But
the High Evolutionary, and I just was like, especially the past few Marvel films we've had like kind of iffy villains. I just loved the fact that James Gunn made this insane motherfucker. It was just
that's the thing for me. For me, he's not like a Loki level villain where you're I can understand him. He's just like a very like obvious villain, but done in a very fun way and in a very fitting way for the movie. Like, it's incredibly over the top, but in a way that really adds to the feeling that the movie is going for. So for me, he's fantastic for this movie. He works perfectly.
What did you think, Lewis? Because I think you were a wee bit more.
I feel like he kind of annoyed me a fair bit, because I just think he was like a screaming, petulant child, and I guess that is kind of part of it, but I was like, I kind of just want him to stop talking now. Especially near the end when he's like screaming, and I was just like, please.
Actually, I was a bit the opposite. Like, I accepted that was him, and I was kind of like invested.
But like, I don't think
he's
terrible, and I don't think, but also he's people right. There's this weird thing on Twitter, which I pointed this out to Kyle. It's borderline offensive and racist. Actually, people are saying,
I didn't want to bring this up.
They're saying, they need to recast Jonathan Majors now with Shukuri Awudi from Guardians 3 because he did such an amazing performance. And I was like, what? And then I was just like, well, there's many other black actors out there.
Yeah,
why would you just
already a character. Why
I
would
know,
you
it's just
confuse
like,
things
oh,
further?
we could just be a variant of it, and I'm just like, oh, shut up, and like, what is stupid suggestion? I don't know why it's getting any traction whatsoever. It's really
People
dumb.
being weird. Yeah.
But yes, moving on from that stupid.
But yeah, for
stupidness,
me, he really did feel like a Joffrey. Like the kind of villain that's a complete fucking bastard and you hate him.
Yeah,
that's the kind of villain. Yeah, 100%. And I hate him really so like much, but I love how much I hate him.
Well, okay, I guess we'll kind of just give our scores here, and I'll move on to spoilers then. So we'll go down the list. Gonzalo, sum it up. Give us your number. Let's go.
Okay. Really fucking enjoyed it. I think it's a fantastic end to like the Guardians trilogy. Even if we get more movies after this, I doubt they'll be this quality. I think everyone who participated really absolutely loved the movie and put their everything into it. Mm-hmm. And even though I have like a couple of minor issues with it, I'm gonna give it I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. This was fantastic.
Classic Gonzalo being generous score.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
I'm going to be really generous with this one. I'm only going to give it an 11 out of 10. I'm going to be really nice here, guys.
It's not the best movie I've seen recently, but it's one that I have no issues seeing over and over and over again. It's fantastic. It goes to some places that I'm really happy it went to, because it's bold and it's different and it's strange, and I really, really fucking liked it.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. Right, Kyle.
Can I cry for that statement? Again, for me, this is the first time I've had fun with a Marvel film in forever. It's the first Marvel film I think post Endgame, or maybe post. I'm not including No Way Home, whatever, because that was more of an experience than an actual film, you know.
Yeah. That's a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, this is genuinely the first Marvel film that I want to see again, and I haven't. I don't know when the last time I said that was, to be fairly honest. Yeah. I have to say, like, I agree that I thought the actual quality of production for this film was so much higher than what we've seen in the last few years. The chemistry between all the characters was just so on point. With minor like dips or called, which we can talk about later. I overall just a really fun time. This kind of makes me more excited to see what James Gunn does in the future with his future projects. So I'm going to give it a really solid 8 out of 10.
Nice. Well, I'm going to echo your thoughts there, Kyle. Absolutely, I think the character dynamics, the character writing is the best thing in the film. Absolutely, everyone does a fantastic performance. Everyone is embodying these roles to perfection. We'll talk about more on it in spoilers. Absolutely, like I said, that second act was tremendous for me. I love the passion. I like the emotional drive in it. But there are various flaws throughout. I mean, I didn't talk about. I thought the first 20 minutes or plus were really rough for me. I thought the entire opening action sequence was quite bad, and I was actually quite concerned that James Gunn didn't give a shit making this film. I was like, oh no. But it's one of those ones where, actually no, I was wrong. You watch it and you're like, oh no, it's okay. And it was just kind of bombarded with like a lot of nonsense and plot. And I was like, okay. But overall, I did have a very good time, and it's probably the best Marvel film. Like you guys were saying, like everyone seems to be saying, it's the best Marvel movie in ages, and I love James Gunn's direction. I've loved his direction for pretty much every film he's done, actually. I kind of like all his films. Yeah. And it's my second favourite Guardians film, absolutely. And I'm giving this a strong 7 out of 10. So, nice. There we go.
Oh,
right.
We go down that's nice. I like that. I like that. 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
We can argue more about this in spoilers if you guys want to keep listening. So, you have been warned. We're now entering spoiler realm.
Spoiler territory.
If you have not seen the film, we're going to jump right into the nitty gritty of it, and we're going to be talking about Rocket Baby. So yes, we don't really touched on this much because we couldn't. Is that the entire film is about Rocket Raccoon, and about saving Rocket. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but Rocket's always been my favourite Guardian, and I actually remember when, in watching Infinity War, and then when everyone gets snapped and they're snapping away the Guardians, I was like, thank God they didn't kill Rocket. And then that whole year waiting for Endgame, everyone had all these questions going on, and all I was ever asking was, what are they going to do with Rocket in this film? Like, oh my God, what's he going to do? Why is he with them? This is crazy. I loved that stuff. I loved him in Endgame as well, and
he was my favorite part of Endgame. Him pairing up with Thor for that whole thing was just fantastic, and the way he acted as emotional support, that was just great. Yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was really good fun. I don't think I don't know. Now I would probably say he's my favorite just because of this film. But I mean, in the original films, I enjoyed them all so much equally. I genuinely don't think I looked at them as the Guardians, not as Peter, Drax, Gamora, Groot, Rocket. I was really kind of enjoying them as a group. Rocket in this film.
It's quite interesting though, because the first two Guardians films are Peter Quill very centrally
heavy,
focused.
Yeah.
They're his stories mainly, and this one although he is the lead actor and the leading member of the group, it's different that they took it in the direction this really is Rocket's story, which was a nice turn actually. I did enjoy that. I liked that stuff, and we'll jump into the whole thing. Now, did you think Rocket was going to die in this thing?
Yes.
You thought he was going to die?
I was so convinced that the Mark thing was 100%. Basically a sign saying this rodent's going to die.
See, the thing for me is that, I was, the writing was so fucking good up to that point. I was 100% convinced he was going to die. I was...
spoilers, he's not dead.
No, the shocking thing is, none of them die.
None of them died. That was
just kind of a twist in itself.
There was a second moment where I thought Star-Lord was gonna fucking kick the bucket, and then he.
No. I thought that as soon as his face started inflating, I knew it was a gimmick.
I was like, nah, that's not how they're gonna leave the body.
They wouldn't have done it as such.
For a fucking second, up until I saw the face, for a fucking second, I was like, wait, are they gonna do the thing where they kill him to parallel the first movie where he goes out to save Gamora? Is that a thing we're doing now?
His face bit reminded me actually very briefly of that Dungeons and Dragons scene with Chris Pine's character being distorted with the bard thing. I don't know if you remember that. I was watching it. I just went, that's what that reminds me of. But no, Rocket. Do you know what's interesting, right? Yeah. So this was just I just did a bit of kind of looking up, because obviously Bradley Cooper, who's not been as kind of prominent in the marketing for the last kind of year.
For any of the films, really.
For any of them. I think maybe the first one he maybe kind of popped his head out and said hi. He was really on the forefront of the kind of stuff and everything. Yeah. And I discovered he doesn't even do Baby Rocket.
No.
He didn't do the voice for that. That was Sean Gunn.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like,
yeah.
I was a bit that's a bit of a cheat, because I felt more of the powerful stuff happens when he's young. And it's like, Bradley Cooper coming. It's a real character. I'm like, he probably had 10 minutes worth, adult Rocket probably had, because obviously Rocket gets shot at the start and is in a coma for most of the first and second act.
Yeah.
And then only comes back into consciousness in the third act. I'm like, I felt more 80% of the powerful Rocket moments happened when it wasn't Bradley Cooper voicing him. Yeah. And I was just that's a bit of a cheat.
The thing that Bradley Cooper was part of was that one scene that gave me fucking chills when they're on the big square pyramid ship thing. And they're about to leave, and he turns around and he's like, I'm not running anymore. And then they all start lining up. There's a thing, by the way, about this movie, and I gotta talk about this. I think we've talked about pathos in the Marvel universe before, and how much, not pathos, fucking the other thing, how they undercut emotional moments with comedy.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do that so fucking much. This movie does not do that, and it's fucking amazing, because when it does, it's a fucking great joke, but then when it's important, it just lets it play. And this scene of them walking in slow motion, it's just badass. It's just supposed to be a climactic moment, and it is. Nobody trips.
It was a very kind of fun, slow motion walk.
That's the thing, but it's corny as fuck. They don't give a shit about how corny it is.
And of course, it leads into that one-shot sequence in the in the hallway, which me, Gunfell. I think we've talked about this before. When I've talked about one-shot sequences where I think it points they become really gimmicky unless they're
Yes,
done really
yes.
well and to
100%.
a great degree. And
I've been part of
I was
one
like,
of those.
this was a fantastic one-shot sequence. The way it's utilizing all their different gadgets and powers and like the way they flow in combat. I was like, this is great. This is really great.
I might get flack for comparing it to this, but it reminded me a lot of the second to last episode of The Bear, because it was a one-shot series. It's a one-shot where by the end of it, I had to think, wait, was that a one-shot?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really notice the fact that it was a one-shot until I thought back.
That's a very good point, because I couldn't have told you that was a one-shot, so I will definitely look out for that again on Thursday.
Okay.
I don't know, because I don't know, sometimes for me I feel like I don't know, in my head I just wasn't expecting a one-shot from this kind of film, so I wasn't looking for it. Like,
no,
it's when
but that's the trick. That's when it's good filmmaking, where it like takes you out, like the fact that it takes you into the story and you're not even paying attention to what kind of shots are being used. It's just a credit to it being good.
I know, but I think in like other kind of films, like, you know, when they do is it Old Boy that has that kind of like famous kind of hallway one-shotty kind of scene, where they can almost kind of like position the camera to make you kind of aware of it. Yeah. I'll rewatch it on Thursday, so I'll be more kind of aware that sequence is a one-shot. But no, the action. Just want to jump back on that because. Lewis, you mentioned that you weren't a huge fan of the starting action. And I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you there. I thought that was a bit more
chalky
janky.
editing and janky. Like,
yes, it felt,
you know,
very incredibly chaotic.
That's the thing, because I was like, because the last James Gunn film that came out was the Suicide Squad, and the action that's absolutely terrific.
Oh, it's
which
like
also has another very not similar one shot, but Harley Quinn has a whole like. Sequence in that.
That's true.
That's more old boyish with like going
that's
down
the more old boy
and
one.
Stuff.
And then because coming off that, going in, and this is the first action sequence of the film, and that's what kind of made me concerned. I was like, oh, James Gunn has just done this to be like get rid of these characters, and then like I don't really give a shit about the filmmaking, and I was very concerned.
See, I agree with you, because I had concerns for this film from the start, just by looking at the first trailer that came out, because it looked very dark and desaturated, and that already gave me a lot of red flags. And the beginning looks also kind of dark and desaturated, you know, and kind of stuff like that. Looking back at it, and I'm gonna go rewatch the movie, but looking back at it, it might have even been purposeful, like making it so chaotic and disjointed and weird feeling, just because it's supposed to be this intrusion into their like.
I get that, but that
normal
I just
life.
Felt like it could have been done better.
I did not enjoy that fight scene at all. It felt bad. It felt uncomfortable. And that's what
left me a bit uneasy, because I was like, okay, so, and then obviously it leads to the Rocket getting injured, and then the whole plot's going on, and then Gamora and the Ravagers just like barge in, and then it's like, okay, we're doing this and this, and I just felt really bombarded with plot and like just terminology and stuff going on that I was just
I'm
like,
wondering,
can you just give me a break? But then it does. See, as soon as they start the heist, I'm like, thank God, because like, I don't know what it is, right? I love Sylvester Stallone, but every time I see him in these films, I'm like, can you not be here? Like, I just find him annoying. And the Ravagers.
I think he was perfect in this one, because he barely talks. And
he's barely in
it.
I
like him as like a cameo. I don't want him to be a character, you know?
Me and my friends.
I'm sad Michelle Yeoh wasn't the Ravager in charge, honestly, because she was in the last one as one of the main Ravagers. Yeah.
We joked that Sylvester Stallone came in, talked, and then James Gunn just had to kind of work the script around him. Just like you know, he came in, he just went on set, did a few things, and then just James Gunn went, right, that's what I've got to work with. How am I going to make this story?
They actually have, in the cutting room floor, there's like 4 or 5 shots of him just running up and down stairs. The production kept wondering why he was doing that, but they're like, fuck
I want to actually ask, because we're talking about the Ravengers, and I know, Lewis, I think you specifically have a bit of an issue with this.
I
Gamora.
do have an issue with the ending of some of the characters.
I
Gamora being
loved what they did with Gamora. I absolutely fucking love what they did with Gamora. I love it.
See, it's weird. I'm in the middle, so this is actually quite a good little.
Okay, I'll tell you why, right? Because, and I get it's because the whole point of the film is that, you know, it's about almost falling out of love with someone. You know, it's about two people who are no longer in love with each other. Although obviously not naturally they fall in love with each other. It's just because of what James Gunn was left this. He's made it a film about two people falling adrift with each other, right? And I get that. And her not being with the Guardians at the end, I'm like, fair enough. That does actually make sense. I don't know, but it's like Sylvester Stallone once again coming in and saying, yeah, you're part of the family or whatever, and I was just like, this, but no, you're not. Like, this is never, this means absolutely nothing to me. And I don't know, just maybe because I liked Gamora so much in those original Guardians films, and then just her just being left with just, and she hugs the Ravagers, and she's a Ravager at the end. I'm like, like, fine.
I don't know.
No, I look at her as a different character.
That's the thing. She's not Gamora. She's a completely different
that's the kind of thing I look at it. Is that so I'm not.
He was given like some shit from Endgame. Also, we have to pretend in this movie because they pretended in Endgame that they had a relationship, like an actual loving relationship. They never really had that. They were in the will they won't they phase because fucking Peter Quill was a little baby bitch boy, and you can't really have a relationship with a baby bitch boy.
Yeah, but I understand why they went that way because they were pretty much almost together in that second Guardians film, and then it's 4 years have gone by. So it's easy to suggest that they have finally got together. I think he even references in that second film that they're like Sandy or something from Cheers, like in a classic sitcom situation. And they almost get together in that film anyway. So I never have had a problem that they were together in Infinity War because so much time had passed.
I had a problem with them being together in Infinity War because by the end of the second movie, we were clearly shown a Peter Quill that was not ready to be in a relationship with Gamora.
Yes, and that's why 4 years of time have passed.
There has been time. I know you struggle if the date is not on screen, Gonfalo. Okay?
I don't like it. I don't like it when character development happens when I'm not watching. I don't think
honestly,
it's nice.
You should.
I think it's shit.
He's the worst person to watch Harry Potter with because he's like, what the fuck's happening in each film?
Yeah.
Don't they even like hold hands together in like one of the final shots of that film? When
they do, and that's like a very big step. That's a very big step. They hold hands, and then in the next movie they're kissing, and it's
because 4 years of time have passed.
I know, but we weren't shown their relationship.
Oh my!
Carry on with.
If you want a Quill and Gamora sex tape, you go find it. Okay, you don't need it.
No, that's Lewis. Point is.
If it's not Italian, I'm not watching.
I really love what they did. When Gamora was first introduced, I was fucking terrified. Right. Absolutely terrified. They were gonna do the thing where, like, he reminds her of how much they loved each other, and then she was gonna fall in love with him again. And I'm so fucking happy that they didn't go that way. I'm happy that he changed her in a positive way. He showed her what she could become. He showed her what they were. She ends up appreciating and understanding why she could have been with someone like him. But I also like that they're not together and that she goes on with her life and tries to find her way. I get that scene with her hugging everyone, it's a bit fucking corny, but I guess it's just to try to wrap things up because clearly her story's not wrapped up yet. It has so much.
I think it would have been an even a kind of what would have made it more perfect is that she goes, because I think the whole film was actually her falling in love with the Guardians as a friendship group together, right? Again,
the idea of family.
So, and fuck the Ravagers, right? Dumbass shit. Fuck them. And by the end of the film, she's like, oh yeah, I'm like, I want to be like, I want to be with you guys, I want to be part of the Guardians. But then Quill, obviously knowing that they can't really ever be together again because it's not the same person, he then goes, I'm leaving because I'm going to go find my family again.
Right.
That ending to me seems much more fitting to the actual narrative and theme of the entire film than her just going right back.
Okay. I get that.
I want to jump on
because Quill's the one who's decided to move on with his life, right?
No, I get
right. So my thing with Gamora is I don't think she should have been in it at all because I think that because I think it's an absolute cop out of the Russo brothers with the Endgame snap because she would have been snapped away because Tony snapped away everybody that came through the portal, right? That's a huge gripe and a huge plot hole where they're like, oh no, she didn't get snapped away because she decided she was good, so that means Tony won't only snap away the bad people. I think that was a bunch of bullshit. You could have had this because Peter never really had time to grieve, because obviously the way Infinity War worked, it was only like 5 minutes of him realizing she died to him being snapped away, right?
Yeah.
So for him, he then just sees Gamora and then Endgame an hour or two after he heard, an hour max after he heard that she died.
Yeah.
I would have loved it if she had stayed dead, because James Gunn had talked in an interview that Gamora actually was originally planning to die in Volume 2.
Right, okay.
Right?
But then
now, you can look this up. He does.
Yeah.
They needed them for that. So that's why they changed it. And James Gunn says he felt better because her death was I think a lot more kind of prominent in the second one, because Zoe didn't want to get kind of strapped down into this kind of Marvel kind of contract sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you had kept her dead,
okay,
you could have had this full film of, you could have turned it around where Peter is trying to save Rocket because he lost one of the others. He was never able to save Gamora. He has to work to save Rocket, and then you could have also tied it into the thing where he's now seen the Guardians are slowly kind of splitting apart, and he knows that he's got nothing. He's not got a true love here. He's got his friends, but his friends are all kind of separating out. Mantis wants to go do her own thing. Nebula and Rocket have got that, and then he decides, you know what? I think now's my time to kind of bow out and see where Earth leads me. Either your choice, Will, was fantastic. Either of those were better than what they did in the film. I think having Gamora completely out of the film would have probably made a better.
Like
you could have had Nebula dealing with her sister's death.
Yeah.
You could have had, because obviously, like you said, there has been a 4-year period.
Yeah.
The only one who was able to actually grieve for everybody would have been actually Nebula and Rocket.
I get what you mean. But I don't, because I feel like we would have lost the thing that I really liked in this movie, and that's seeing the dynamic of Nebula and Gamora switch, because it really, like, seeing Gamora back, 10 steps back,
I know,
really allows us to see how much Nebula has grown. And I know it's silly, but like literally having her there really makes you appreciate Nebula as a character and her growth and her evolution. And I also like the fact that Quill isn't only like grieving a dead lover, but like has like that like chance, like out of reach kind of thing of like, yeah, she's still alive, but like he has to accept the fact that, like the whole thing that Mantis says about like, you've been jumping from one lily pad to the other, it's time to learn to swim kind of thing. If we didn't really have like a
That's
love
actually
interest...
Drax that said that, but okay.
I mean, it was
that came from
Mantis
Drax's
told
heart.
Drax to tell him.
No, that came from Drax's heart.
By the way, side tangent. Mantis in this movie is fucking amazing. And
I was about to say,
happy.
I was like, can we give a second for the Drax and Mantis combo?
Oh
fucking
my
love them
god!
together.
Yeah.
So like
silly.
in the second one,
silly.
Their Mantis was really good,
at the
but
end.
she had like she had like a very major plot thing that she had to do in the second one, so she didn't really get to like be too much. And then in Endgame and Infinity War, the Russo brothers didn't know what the fuck to do with her, so she was just there.
Essential,
but, like, Mantis
though.
in this
Essential in that fighting on Titan.
Yes, but like just her powers,
can,
not her personality.
Can we acknowledge the appreciation that James Gunn wrote in how he hated how Peter Quill was treated in Infinity War? Because there's literally a line where Peter Quill's going like, I got like really mad and I killed half the universe. Like it's like but talk about the Mantis and stuff. So this is where I kind of wanted to tie into, because Lewis, as we were saying, you weren't extremely kind of happy with Peter Quill's ending of going back to Earth, right, to see his granddad. Now, what I was saying that so the way I know. Okay, don't worry.
I know. I'll say my piece.
The Christmas special, right, which in its own it's an okay bit of, it's not the best thing ever, right? But it was filmed during the filming of Volume 3, okay? And the way I think it kind of worked is that James Gunn had a story and he wanted to almost plant seeds in it, because we get far more of Mantis and Drax in it, right? They're the ones that go off to kidnap Kevin Bacon for Christmas, which is a bit fun in itself. You get introduced more to Cosmo as a character because obviously Cosmo the dog appears in this film more.
Hilarious, by the way.
And it's hinted a lot more in that Christmas special than a lot of this kind of film. That Peter has started to kind of feel lost in the kind of Guardians, with the idea that I think that they're finally settling down in nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of unsettling for Peter because obviously he's always been on the move, on the Ravengers and in the space. And he starts to kind of miss Earth a bit more in the Christmas special, and that's why like Drax and Mantis are trying to cheer him up. So when that kind of seed was planted early on in this film, for me, I was a bit like, oh yeah, because he was a bit upset in the last one, so that makes sense for me, because I thought it felt for me more like a continuation of this kind of idea that was growing in Peter's head. And for when Mantis talks about how all of them are broken inside, and I was kind of like, I think for Peter, that I think he's genuinely going to kind of realize in his head that he's trying to chase after, in this scenario, he's trying to chase after a Gamora that doesn't want him. And then he knows that there could be family on Earth that do want him. So for me, when he kind of went, I was like, obviously there was a little bit in my head where I was like, Chris Pratt is probably the only actor right now that wants to come back for more. Dave Bautista said he's out. I think Dave Bautista was really pissed off of how James Gunn was treated, so he's fully gone. Karen Gillan, she's obviously, with more and more, she's getting more and more kind of roles. I think she's probably the only one out of the other Guardians that I could see coming back as Nebula. With the other guys, like, Rocket, Groot, they've got their own kind of Guardians.
And they're very easy to do.
I don't
just
see
CGI
that.
creatures, so you can just...
you
don't need actors.
But at the end...
show for a couple of days and do this thing, so...
At the end of the film, it does say Star-Lord will return. So, it's hinting that Chris Pratt is really the only one that's maybe contractually obliged to make a return.
Well, they say that about contracts and stuff, but Marvel, look, at the end of the day, they're not like, dictators or anything.
No,
if
I know,
an actor
but
really doesn't want to do it, they won't actually make them do it.
No, I know, but he's a leading character, It's different when, like, Hugo Weaving from Captain America 1 signed like a free picture deal, but went, nah, I'm not coming back. Like, they're like, okay, he's a secondary character, we don't give a shit. I think they maybe a wee bit more like,
look, okay, well, let's talk about this ending, because the thing with Peter Quill for me, like, it was a bit jarring to me, because obviously I didn't watch that holiday special, and he never really cared about going back home. Like, he'd never done it in his entire life until, of course, Endgame and whatnot, right? Where he just was teleported there.
I feel that ruined it, to be honest.
Yeah, because I'm like, that was the thing for me. I was like, you were already on Earth, so I was like,
again,
if you wanted to see your granddad, you would have done it.
For me, most of the issues I have with these Guardians of the Galaxy movies are the fact that they're forced to be
Avengers.
part of the MCU. Like, honestly.
But the thing is, that bothered me about the ending of Peter Quill going off is that the whole kind of point of the first two and this one as well, mainly those first two, was that this was his family, this is the people he was meant to be with, and then of him just going, family. I guess I'm going to find my real family now, and I was just a bit, but I don't want to be that
guy. I don't want to be that guy, Lewis, but I don't think you got it. It's not about him going back to his family. It's not about him going back to Earth or his home. It's about him confronting the reason he ran away. In the first movie, he runs away from his mother's death. And he hasn't stopped running since. He's never gone back to that room to see his grandfather and confront the reality that his mother is gone. This was him, like the same way the whole movie was the basically Rocket's arc of him going back and confronting the thing that he was running away from, the thing that made him who he is, but also overcoming it. This was Quill's chance to stop running and go back home. And I get why it's now, because, like, I haven't seen the Christmas special either, but the idea of settling down for someone who's been running, like, for all the movies, we've seen them jumping from place to place, thing to thing, even changing ships and stuff. Like, they've never really had, like, a home. Now everyone's starting to build a home, and he's stuck in the one place. And he's always been running from this idea. Not seeing his grandpa. It's not about seeing his grandpa. It's not about meeting his real family. It's about confronting the death of his mother. He's never accepted the death of his mother. In the first film, he listens to the music. He still doesn't accept the death of his mother. In the second movie, he tries to find his dad.
I thought he did accept the death of his mother in the first film, though. I thought that was the point of that film.
No, he takes
because he finally reaches out to the hand, and then he finally opens up the gift. That was the point of that.
But like, it's a small step. Like, obviously, for that movie, if you take it as a self-contained movie, yes. But like, if you're still looking at them as like three movies. Yeah, exactly. So, like, for me, it's that idea of, like, he accepts that his mother is gone. He confronts his father about it, and then he goes back and confronts his grandpa, who is the person he was running from. He's the guy who was shouting at him when he exited that, like, hospital and got kidnapped, you know? So, like, for me, that's what I think that was about. Not about the finding a family. He's already found a family. He's already found people that accept him the way he is. But now he has to confront that part of him that he still hasn't. That's what I think that was about. That's what I got from it.
No, I get it.
Didn't see the Christmas special.
For me, it's like we'd done that. We did that.
Okay.
In two other films. And then it's sort of when people bring up the whole, like the Tom Holland films are like, that whole trilogy is him becoming Spider-Man. I'm like, well, Sam Raimi did it in like the first act of one film, and that always pissed me off. Where it's like, you don't need 3 films to do that one thing, and it's this sort of same idea. It's like, we did it in one film, and I don't know, the whole runaway thing, like I don't know, it just felt very. For me, I know, like Mantis, they talk about their grandfather for one scene in the film. And then by the end of it, we go through this whole thing with Rocket and stuff, and the whole relationship and love thing with Gamora and stuff. And then I don't know. For me, it just felt a bit off. Just because there was no. If he'd done more sprinkling of it and more hinting of it throughout the entire film, then by the end of it, I feel like I would okay. But then where it's just like, right, I'm gonna go see my granddad.
You could have had a fantastic scene at the end of Endgame, right? You know when he's in this ship and he's looking for that image of Gamora?
Yeah.
You could have had one frame of him looking at his granddad's house and a puzzling look in his face. Yeah. And it would have made so much more difference.
Yeah, but like also then Endgame should have been written well, and it really, wasn't. So like, yeah.
Everything would be sorted if everything was just good.
Yeah,
that
is the point. Like, that is kind of what we're saying. It's
everything would be sorted.
If it wasn't bad, it'd be good. Yeah, like honestly, it would. It really would.
Love for Lunder could have been amazing if it was just written well. If it was just a good film, it would be so much better.
Life would be. This podcast would be easier if every film was good.
I mean, we would.
This podcast would be easier if Goodfellow had seen every film.
That's true too. Yeah, see?
That's also true.
If I was good at this, then, it'd be better, yeah.
if we were all good at this Goodfellow, the podcast would have been, it wouldn't just be Argentina that listens to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
not saying I don't love our fans in Argentina.
Stop shitting on the one fan that we have. Come on, man. But yeah, anyways, it's for me, it was a fantastic movie, and I do want to highlight the thing that I enjoyed the most about this movie, and it's earnest nature, its honesty, and like the way the writing wasn't afraid to be fucking corny or emotional, or it was like, no, this is like what humans are like, this is how they act. Like, honestly, the crazy ass story and settings and all that shit, I love that. I'm a big fucking fan of absurdist sci-fi shit. Love it so much. But you could take all of that away, and for me, it would still be a fantastic movie, because after all, it was the characters that really carried the shit out of this movie. Absolutely. And like you said, it really shows James Gunn loves his characters. It really does. Like, he loves these guys.
And for that, I have to say that I can officially say I'm genuinely quite excited for the Superman Legacy. If James Gunn's going to put as much effort and heart into the characters and the direction, I'm like, 100%.
This might be the first Superman movie I enjoy.
You've not liked any Superman movie?
No,
None of them? Okay.
None of them.
None of them. What about Batman v Superman and Dawn of Justice?
Oh,
the
that
best
was
film
brilliant,
of all
though.
time.
Like, come on, man. That was so dark and gritty. I fucking love that shit.
I just want to know at any point. Like, I don't know if this is me just being a heartless shit. But obviously over social media and trends, there's a whole thing of people who are like, me before seeing Guardians 3, me after seeing Guardians 3, and they're like a tearful mess.
Yes, because of the animal cruelty stuff.
I didn't cry.
That's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did
Doesn't
anybody
make you a
else not
monster,
cry?
Kyle. It's okay.
My dad didn't cry.
Either.
Yeah, my dad didn't cry.
Right.
I
Okay.
cried,
No, it's because
but only once,
I found it emotional and moving, and by the end of it, I was sitting there going, "Oh, that was." That's a really nice ending. I'm actually, I'm feeling emotional. But at no point was I sitting there.
Sometimes, Kyle, we men are not expected to cry, and we're actually expected to shove our emotions
the closest,
down deep
the
inside.
closest part that I got, I have to admit, was when Rocket decided to rescue those baby raccoons.
Oh,
that was the closest. And then I kind of got to it, and then I was kind of like at the end, and then I saw social media, and it's people going like,
for me,
I didn't bring enough tissues to Guardians of the Galaxy. And
I don't know, because for me, like, you actually messaged me something, Kyle, about something about the flashback scenes being, is it more visual storytelling than dialogue storytelling? And I'll tell you what, if it was all visual storytelling, I think it could have been much better, because like I don't know, the line saying it's great having friends made me cringe so hard. And I was like, thanks for explaining what this scene was about. I didn't need that.
You mean if those scenes were a wee bit less?
Like when the High Evolutionary comes in, he opens the cage. I was like, yeah, they're all gonna get shot. I don't know. Maybe I'm a heartless monster, but I didn't cry.
Just quickly,
like a fucking baby.
I'm sorry. Jumping on
that creepy ass bunny, who by the way still creeping the fuck out. I cried when the bunny.
I was kind of like, it's kind of cool how you make something so ugly and scary quite. Also, if the High Evolutionary is trying to
creepy and then made it wholesome again, and that's like
sometimes I don't understand the High Evolutionary's causes, because he makes Rocket a smart raccoon. That's fine. He gives Lila robotic arms. What was he thinking of that buddy? Was he like, the buddy needs spider legs?
He just wanted to make them suffer.
That's how we improve the rabbit. It's because spider legs.
I'm not like. I realize I came across some sort of monster there. I did find it emotionally
No,
sad
you said
when
you
they
hated
died.
it. You said
I'm not saying I didn't feel anything. I'm saying
no. The moment
cheered in the cinema.
The moment I cried and I started crying is during.
Oh God! Of course you cried.
Yeah, I cried only once though, surprisingly.
Only once.
But that scene when Rocket was dying and he was going to like that plane and the freaking the otter lady, forgot her name, was
Lila.
Lila, thank you. See, he does care. Lila was like.
That's the scene which to me too. I was more emotional.
That's what
I was like, oh,
that's what made me cry.
But then I actually, once again, my cynical head was like, but wait a minute. That scene from the trailer hasn't happened yet. So I was like, he must be coming back.
See, this, Lewis, is why I try not to watch trailers.
I know. That's why I used to always go to the toilet when trailers come on and stuff. But.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the trailer when Rocket's in the Guardian's outfit. And then when I realised that wasn't going to be until the third act, I was like, alright, he's alive.
Yeah. Goddamn marketing.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought I was convinced he was gonna die. I was like, no, they're not gonna kill him. They're not gonna kill him. And the more that it came along, I was like, they're gonna kill him. And then that moment where she says, "Oh, you gotta go back," I'm like, oh, thank fuck. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, I also thought that was a really touching scene with Gamora, and the reason I like her being there, despite how rough around the edges it is, I really liked how that was that scene where she was like, holy shit, you guys are literally killing yourselves just to save this one person.
That's what I was saying, that whole bit. I also love when they just do random pairings. So it was like Star-Lord and Groot going up together and doing that whole thing with the gun.
That was a really good action scene.
Camera, and then where he literally just goes, he's literally just like, right, we got to do this thing. I'm going to jump out the goddamn window. Groot, let's do this. It's like, the passion, the drive. To
that
do
was
it.
great.
It's
that was great.
Beautiful.
That was also that scene. The thing is, like, the character scenes in this movie are so fucking good. This is like the kind of shit that I wanted from, like, you know, the Star Wars sequels. Like after the first one came out, everyone was like, people were like making comics of like the characters interacting and having like little moments and shit. This movie's just like amazing little moments between all of the characters, and I fucking love it. That moment where like Drax is trapped with Mantis and Nebula in that like thing, and they find the children, like that scene where like fucking Mantis is confronting Nebula and talking about how he's a complete dumbass, and like it's so fucking good. It's so
I have a
good.
question.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to know what's going on with Marvel, because some producer in Marvel is having a thing with a giant group of kids.
Yeah, they love
That's
kidnapping
the second
kids
time
in
this
these
has
films.
happened.
They love kidnapping
That is
kids.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
I have a feeling a lot of producers have children and they want them to show up in the movies.
Ooh, I was kind of worried what you were going to say there
Yeah,
about
I was
producers
like,
and
what the
children,
hell
but that's
is that?
better.
Oh no, I was.
What the
I'm going
hell?
positive thinking here. I'm positive thinking
Jesus.
here. Positive thinking here.
Jeez, oh, man.
Producers have kids. You know how some producers reproduce? Well, that's what I'm talking about. Not
Right,
not
quickly
Okay,
before we
right.
wrap up, before
Finish
we
up,
go
please.
on this very odd tangent,
Yes.
I always ask this. I always ask this stuff when we get like sort of these franchises and things like that. But Kyle, you first. Are we going to get Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think they'll call it Guardians of the Galaxy Remixed? Is because
that
of
would be
the
a good
new
fucking
Guardians,
title.
a new Guardians team start with the one.
No
No new Guardians film.
No,
Okay.
I think because of what Marvel will be introducing in the next few years,
Yeah, X-Men.
with the X-Men and Fantastic Four, I think Fantastic Four has the opportunity to be the more cosmic part of the Marvel, because Fantastic Four is always a wee bit cosmic-y.
Yeah.
But like honestly, right? See if you were to tell me that was the end of the MCU, I'd be happy.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So no Guardians shows or
I
movies?
think Guardian show.
The only
think
thing I
Guardian
would
show.
see is
Sadly.
now, right, I'm gonna say this, and this is what I'm gonna say is probably gonna happen, and it burns me because it's gonna happen. They'll all be in Secret Wars.
Please God no. Because
Right,
I wanted a bit more finality.
you
with
know
this,
why
'cause
this
I don't
burns
want
me.
them coming back. I want this is them to be finished.
I want it to be the end, but they'll just the Marvel cow. I have never been so afraid for an Avengers film in all my life
In Secret Wars.
than Secret Wars. Mainly because one person's reaction to it may break the sound barrier. I genuinely have the fear of God for this film.
Oh god, why are they even doing Secret Wars? Like we already know the fucking green people are good. Like it's fine.
In Endgame and all that, they started like, oh, maybe people like these like 2-second cameos or 2-second moments because people just like come off of that shit. And
all right, and
I just
on that note,
it's do
We're
we
going
have good
as dark
storytelling
as
or
Guardians 3.
should we have good storytelling or should we have
Cameos.
I don't know, Miles Taylor show up as a Fantastic Four character that nobody liked. Oh, we'll do Miles Taylor. Oh my god, I always loved him. I always thought Fantastic was the greatest Fantastic Four film.
Revisionism is an incredible
I
thing,
hate
though.
fans. I hate people. I hate Disney.
And on that rant, we will wrap up today's episode. So, thank you, Gonzalo,
Sorry,
for joining
sorry.
me.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, Kyle.
I do apologise. I don't hate everybody.
I was like, wow, this is a really reasonable discussion, bit of back and forth, dissecting all the portions of this film, and we're going to end on that. But
I really lost it there. I do
it's
apologise.
okay,
I really did.
okay.
Oh,
Just go.
God.
Take a
fine,
rest.
it's fine.
Take a rest.
I
But on-
understand that the like current state of the fucking film media is not great, Kyle. It's okay.
No.
We're all suffering.
We're all suffering.
Just want more Dungeons. I just want more Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry.
You're not getting it. Mario Brothers ruined the chance of that. So, on next week's episode, we will be discussing what you read to do last week, which was the greatest Mummer. I've lost all the ability to speak. What is the greatest
summer
movie season? We'll
Yes.
all have different years, and we'll just have a good old argument, a good old battle of who we think chose the best summer movie.
It was just making us do homework. I'm gonna have to Google every fucking summer season ever now.
I'm going with 1931.
I'm going with 1705.
Oh no. I was about to say something, but I'm going to say it when we're not recording.
Okay.
Okay, well look, we just gave our opinion on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.